everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and I am back with my reaction and review for The Wheel of Time Episode 2. Overall, I thought it was a really good episode. I have some things that left me scratching my head, but I am getting into it. But the one thing that I find really interesting about this kind of show is that I'm not predisposed to liking it. Naturally, I find I like a more realistic fantasy. But what I liked about this episode a lot is it balances really extreme high fantasy with kind of a grittiness. Another thing with this show that I find interesting is most movies or TV shows that I watch, you have character-driven moments, and it's the drama of those moments that drive the plot. I find this episode interesting, as well as the last one, because I feel like all the character moments are predicated off of huge fantasy world-building moments, and I still don't know what the fantasy of the show is. It seems like there's so much. We have this Aes Sedai Moraine, who seems like she can do something new every single episode. I don't know what the limits of her power are, but we see in dialogue that there's new rules that are getting introduced, like she cannot heal herself, only other people. I like that they dived into the rules of the Aes Sedai, that she cannot lie, and I really did love that scene where she was skirting the truth by only really telling the truths that she needed to tell. But she is definitely the Gandalf of this world. But then there's other magical elements like trollocs, and I believe the Fade is that Voldemort-looking guy who controls the trollocs. And the mechanism at this point is they're really just pushing the plot forward. They're pushing our characters to run through the world, and we're learning about it as we go on. I gotta say that I think the first scene kind of pulled me out of the show a bit, because they got this old man to ferry them across the lake. And if you look at the lake, it's not significantly big. And this guy wants to go see his family, and Moraine decides to destroy the boat. And he jumps off into the water and swims to the boat and sinks with it. Why doesn't he just swim across the lake? What about his son swimming across the lake? Why don't the trollocs just run around the lake? The dialogue that they had with this old man, and he ended up killing himself, and then figuring out what to do, the trollocs could have already run around the lake. But I'm going to dock that as more of a production issue, and not the plot, but it did pull me out a bit. And then there was another moment with the trollocs, and I feel like the show needs excuses to try and justify them not following them or attacking them. And the second time the trollocs came, they went to this mysterious building with a crack down the castle walls. Their horses stopped because they didn't want to enter the castle. There's nothing living that's in it. It has a lot of dark magic, it seems. And the horses refused to go in, and so did the trollocs. But then the horses just decide to go in. There are moments like that where I could be wrong somewhere, but I was constantly just scratching my head being like, oh, okay, that's convenient. And I think that's the main thing with the magical elements of this show, is that this world is so big, and you can't possibly explain it all in a couple episodes, so there's going to be some things that leave you scratching your head and you'll end up figuring it out later. Like, I have a good grip on the Aes Sedai, I have a good understanding of the trollocs and the Fade, but then Matt picks up a dagger and they get followed by darkness. I don't know what that is. So that's another magical element that kind of came out of left field, and the characters had to deal with that. But all in all, I've come to terms with that as the story of the plot. If you think about it so far, it's that the characters are basically running from the trollocs, and they're encountering these new magical elements that broaden the scope of the world, and the characters need to figure it out. So in that aspect of it, I do understand. However, what I like the most about this episode is always the character moments. I love how they established the White Cloaks. They did such a great job at portraying that they hunt down Aes Sedai and they see them as evil. And that's the one thing with this show that really catches me off guard, is it's very fun fantasy, and it seems very PG, and then all of a sudden I'm watching this woman on a stake with her hands cut off. So it's like, it's a bit jarring. And I'm trying to gauge the tone of the show, but I'm glad they didn't skirt away from the brutality of the White Cloaks. I feel like this show is like a Game of Thrones meets Harry Potter. But all that said, I think this scene was an excellent way to establish our villain, who is hunting Aes Sedai. What I love most about this scene is that it didn't explain anything. It showed us. We were able to see that he took her ring, which clearly represents Aes Sedai. And it was just a scene between characters that established the White Cloak's mission and goal, and it set the tone for the episode, which I loved. And that scene raised the stakes when Moiraine had to truth her way out of dealing with the White Cloaks. And that as well I thought was an excellent scene, because after they accepted her as not being an Aes Sedai, they were actually very nice. And that's what I really loved about the show. It was a group of people who were presented as this villain, but they actually do want the best thing for people. They just have a disposition to hate the Aes Sedai. I thought that was great. It further establishes the cultures of the world. So now I want to touch on the characters. I think the hardest part that this show is going to have to deal with is that currently all 4 of the main characters have no personal autonomy, it feels like. I feel like everything is just happening to them, and they just need to react. And there's not many decisions that they've made yet that have had any true fundamental consequences, and I understand that. I guess Matt picking up the dagger was a stupid idea, but aside from that, they're hitched to Moiraine, and I'm interested to see what decisions they make down the line. So first, I want to talk about Rand. He seems like he's the only person who's really upset with the Aes Sedai. He doesn't trust Moiraine, and he makes it very well known in an outburst that he has. And look, I don't know if this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I don't like Rand. I don't particularly like him at all. He's my least favorite character that we've seen on screen so far. I understand that he's like a stubborn character, but him screaming at Moiraine I think was a little heavy-handed. I didn't necessarily buy that reaction. I thought he was kind of crazy. And then in episode 1, he was so accepting and supportive of Egwene being trained by Nynaeve, but now he seems so upset and like in the life and death situation of running from trollocs, and he moves his sleeping bag outside. He just sleeps outside because he wants to be alone. I couldn't help but laugh. I just thought that was kind of stupid. So Rand isn't my favorite character. And then the nail in the coffin for me was when they were running from the darkness and Rand tells Matt, help me up, get me out of here. And then Matt makes a joke that I think is pretty funny. And then Rand's just no, let me go. And it's just actions like that that I don't like. And I want to give Rand the benefit of the doubt. I don't expect any character or hero to be a knight in shining armor. But I already didn't love Rand, and then to see him just almost selfishly have Matt hoist him over, I didn't love. And even if you look at both of them, Rand is much taller than Matt and much sturdier. I feel like he'd be better at hoisting Matt over. But anyways, enough about Rand. Let's talk about Egwene. I feel bad for Egwene because she has to deal with Rand. And I think that scene between them, I completely agreed with her, where she's like, look, dude, I've been through a lot. I just want you to not hate me. And I thought that was a really good scene. Clear that Egwene is gifted, that she can listen to the wind. And Moiraine tells her that it's not the wind that she needs to listen to, it's the wind that listens to her. So she's extremely gifted, and she has the potential of becoming a Aes Sedai. So I imagine that's going to be her character arc. But now let's move on to Perrin. Perrin's been having a tough go. He's been a little bit depressed. He killed his wife. And he's holding some injuries from fighting off the Trolloc. Really, the main thing that happened with Perrin was the wolves. Which, to be honest with you, I don't think the scene was filmed well at all. It really gave me a cheesy sitcom vibe. When you see the wolves, where they put in the sound of the wolf growling and being aggressive, and then it would show a close-up of the wolf, showing its teeth. And it's very clear that the show is trying to communicate to you that this is Perrin's inner fear, and he's manifesting it when the wolves are really just being nice. I didn't like how they filmed that. I think it cheapened the show. I think it would have been much more intense if they filmed it as it was. Just a pack of wolves slowly making their way to him. I think that would raise the stakes in the scene. And then you can end it with the wolf licking his wound. Great. It shows that Perrin has a connection with the wolves. So just like Egwene, Perrin also has a weird innate ability. And I feel like the only real character moments that we've seen in the show are being held up by Matt and Perrin. I love that scene when Matt gave Perrin a dagger that his wife made him. I thought it was a very powerful scene. Really thought it was great. And that pivots to Matt. And he's my favorite character in this whole show. I'm still upset and cannot believe that they recasted him. As far as I'm concerned, he's like the heartbeat of the show. I absolutely love his character, and I love how he's flawed. And I think I like Matt so much because every scene that Matt is in, it's a character moment. And I can't say the same with the other characters. He ends up talking Rand down when he explodes in anger to Moraine. He gives the dagger to Perrin to help him mourn the loss of his wife. And I love how when they get to that town, he's told by Lan not to touch anything. And I just love how he moves throughout his surroundings. That he could just like walk around the rubble, but he steps directly on it. Like he's just willfully destructive. I thought that was great. I thought that was funny. And then he goes searching and he finds a dagger that starts this darkness to come. And that was started by Matt because he didn't listen to Lan. And again, I thought it was great. I thought it played to his character. It made sense. They established that in the first episode. He's someone who's had a lot of hardships, and those have kind of manifested in these flaws. So I'm interested to see what that dagger means in the future. Maybe that can become his innate ability. So I'm interested to see if they have any more dreams, how the Dark One kind of manifests in this trolloc chase. But at this point, we have the last surprise shot of Nynaeve making her return, and I'm really happy she's alive. I loved her as an actress. I thought that was great. Clearly, she's not dead, and she's very capable. Based on her history from the first episode, I would imagine that Nynaeve is also gifted. We saw her listening to the wind with Egwene. So I think Nynaeve has a lot of secrets that she's not necessarily telling. But anyways, that is all I have to say about this episode. If you like this review, please leave a like and comment down below. I want to hear what you guys think will happen in the next episode. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.